Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rob Payo. I'm with Denver Urban Gardens. Welcome to our September webinar, Seasons of Change, Seasons of Wonder, Activities with Young Children. We have a lot of things we want to cover, so we're going to just jump right on in. Oops, let me get there. There we go. And I have a special friend with me who always, my stalwart friend that always joins me on these. Judy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jungle Judy. I do a lot of I'm the senior education specialist with Gardens, and my delight is connecting kids to the fabulous wonder of putting your hands in the soil and getting dirty and growing, both kids and plants.
So to start us off, just to get us in the mood, Judy's going to start us off by getting us in the mood of autumn. So Judy, go ahead.
Right. So the slide says change is in the air and it's time to slow down. So as I was driving home from work, I watched some of the strong winds come in and some of the leaves that had already started to change. I watched the branches of the trees kind of bow down a little bit very slowly. And some of them even released some of their leaves. So for me, this favorite time of the year says it's time to slow down. Not time to be so busy, time to notice everything that's around you that the earth can teach you. Rob's next slide. And what I notice is that it's a time of quiet. I notice that there's not as much music from the birds in the morning. What I do notice in the evening is the chirping of the grasshoppers and the crickets. And I notice that special sound of the wind as it blows through the trees. I notice those last flowers that are around blooming. The colors seem a little bit different too. So it's time of not actively growing above ground, but kind of tuning into the changes that you see around you and notice things that happen every day. My favorite time of year.
It's my favorite too. And today in Denver, it definitely changed.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely change in the air.
I love it. Can you believe it, Rob? We've gone from 90 degrees, almost 100 degrees, to as I was noticing, the rain was beating against my window. I love it.
I know. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Autumn is a time of wondering and noticing. And I stumbled across this quote from Anne Lamott, the writer. Autumn ain't so shabby for wow either. The colors are broccoli and flame and fox fur. So take that image in. The tang is apples, death, and wood smoke. The trails are not dusty anymore, and you get to wear your favorite sweaters. I already wore one of my favorite sweaters earlier because the mornings get cold. So I love this imagery of the colors of broccoli and flame and fox that kind of really speaks to the colors of autumn. What are three words that describe autumn for you? Not necessarily colors, but what words describe it for you? So type in the chat 3 words. I invite people to type in the chat there. So I'm going to take a look here. What 3 words come to you, Judy?
So when I think of autumn, I think of, first of all, harvest, getting to reap that. And I think of, the colors of the seed pods on the trees. And I think of, my goodness, I don't have to bring in 20 tomatoes anymore on a day. I can work on preserving them. So I think about what to do with things rather than just planting above ground.
I think of reflection. I definitely, September is a time. I read this article that people actually, it's better to make New Year's resolutions in September than it is in January, because you're more likely to follow through on them because, it's before the holidays and it's a definite change in the cycle. So we have a quiet audience here. If you want to type in the chat, please type in the chat words that describe. And if you don't, that's all right. We'll move along or
Rob, maybe before you move along, broccoli is a vegetable that sometimes we can grow later on into the fall. That deep green, we notice that deep green that stands out as the leaves are fading.
Right.
And flame, if you look at the sky sometimes at some of the sunsets that we see or sunrises, they almost look like they're on fire. It's something that
Yeah.
happens just at this time of the year. And that rust color of a fox's tail
Yeah.
or
The
color,
rust color.
it just,
It's so great.
pumpkins, it's just wonderful. I love it.
Yeah. Well, Krishna was kind
Oh,
enough and brave enough to, bravery points for Krishna or Kiana. I'm sorry, my glasses, I'm not, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name right. Peace, Harvest Festivals, Pumpkin, everything. That's what Kiana thinks of. Thank you for contributing that.
yeah.
Well, let's move on. And we're going to showcase a book. During our webinars, we'd like to showcase certain books that go with our theme. And here's our first one, If You Hold a Seed.
So this is, I think, one of my favorite books. The colors in this book are very muted, but it really tells the story of being patient from the time you plant a seed. This happens to be a tree seed, and it gets blown away, and how it changes as it grows throughout the season, both in size and causing the young boy to grow along with it. And it calls for patience. It also shows the whole cycle of life, that things don't just grow tall all at once, that it's a process. It really is a circle. So this book is a story of really of wonder, believing that when you do something, it's going to happen, and then noticing the changes that do happen.
And in this book, sorry, I pushed the button, but it's in this book, we're going to do an exercise, and we like to put, in terms of learning, we like to frame things in a context of these three ideas. If we allow kids to slow down and observe, by observing, becoming deep observers, they begin to wonder, they begin to notice things, and they start to ask questions. And as they start to ask their questions, can they investigate them? Can they find out more information? And in that process, they learn. So this frame of I observe, I wonder, I learn is a way to make it more open-ended for students and to cultivate that skill of observation, especially with our younger ones.
Mm.
So we're going to do some observations with colors in the book, If You Hold a Seed. So thank you for setting us up on explaining that book. One of you will be lucky enough to actually win one of these books. We have a fabulous drawing, and we'll have that at the end of our session. So one of you will be lucky enough to win If You Hold a Seed. But we're going to do some observations. I put out some, I copied and pasted one of the pages here. And so I invite you, and really, I invite you to type in what colors do you see in this this page here. So take time to observe what colors, because there's lots of them here if you really pay close attention. So type in the chat there what you see. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that, and then we'll do another thing in here. So type in the chat what colors you see. We're trying to make this interactive, so we want to elicit you to
Rob,
respond as well.
Now I'm reading that on this page it says you will see some little buds and tender leaves. Please feel free when you're typing in your answer for what colors to also give your guess about what season might this be that you see little buds and tender leaves. Do you think it might be spring, summer, fall, or winter? So we encourage you to write down your colors and your seasons. Oh,
at least it had this If You Hold a Seed book before. Is that I'm guessing because you typed in there.
Okay.
Quiet bunch. Okay. Well, if we look at the colors, what can we guess? What season is this? Oh, we've got some people typing in here.
Oh.
Okay. The teddy bear, Andrea says the teddy bear is brown dirt, blue sky. Kiana, thank you for coming in again. Green, blue, brown, gray, black. Thinking it's fall or spring. Karen is noticing buds though, so that's a good sign too, isn't it? So that's why you were thinking spring. You were using your context clues there. Okay, all right. Well, that's a good warm up, and thank you for participating in our little interactive. Let's look at this picture. What colors do you see here? Type in the chat. Oh, Laura, pasta Verde, I don't know. Oh, libellula. Yeah, I learned that word, libellula. Karen sees yellow in this picture. Elise says spring in big capital letters. What makes you say it's spring? What colors do you see? Yellow, orange, green, blacks, browns, purples. That's some good observations there. Amarillo, naranja, naranja. Well, so what season would that be, you think?
I am looking
Elise
at a
thinks
bee
spring.
or a dragonfly. Rob, are they wearing swimsuits, do you think?
They actually are. So that's a good clue. Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, yeah, it's summer. All right. But you were using what you had, and if you actually saw the book, you'd see a little more about the fact that it is indeed summer. All right. Well, lovely playing that game. Here's an activity that you can do. There's lots of variations on this. I thought I'd come up with a different take on it by having, let's say that I had cards, and you can see here, I have cards that have, let me see if I can annotate this here. Let me get my, well, I can do it spotlight here. So you can see here, I've got this summer, whoop, come back here. And I'm gonna mark this up. Well, I can't find my marker. So I'll just explain it here. So I have summer and fall, and I have a whole bunch of paint chips I can get from the hardware store, and have kids talk with one another and divide them into which ones remind you of summer and which ones remind you of fall. And they put the chips that they think are summer on the summer card, and the ones they think are fall on the fall card. And then ask them why they think it is, or they ask each other. And then if they're older students, they can pair up with another pair and they can talk about their choices. And then maybe later on, they can find the colors in the classroom. Okay, let's take our fall colors. Since it's fall, let's walk around and see if we can point to where you can find these colors. Now let's go outside and see if we can find these colors. There's many variations on this. It could be just as simple as you take a bag of chips and you go out in the classroom, or you go outside and say, here's your chip. See if you can find with a partner or by yourself, so you can find one. And again, this is to hone in on people's observation skills. All
Rob,
right.
do you think that you could, I love this activity. Do you think if you did not have the paint chips, you could also do it with a box of crayons?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's actually a different version of this where and Life Lab does that. That I actually did. That was actually kind of fun. So yeah, it's whatever you have handy that just used as a prompt for connecting and observing. So, and speaking of observing, you've made some observations, Judy.
Yes, I'm observing constantly that leaves are changing their colors. And sometimes, we're cued in to look for aspens turning or go up when fall color comes. But very often, the most exciting thing for me is to look up in the tops of trees. Like I have a honey locust tree outside my front door. And I thought, oh my goodness, nothing's changing. And then in the very top third of the tree, there are two branches where the leaves are turning different shades of yellow. So this causes me to wonder what in the world is causing them to change color. They were green when they first come out, and now my honey locust is yellow, part of them. And I'm wondering, do you think it might be the cold? Do you think it might be the sun? Do you think it might be the length of day? Rob, can we look at another slide? And here's a whole variety. So it's not just yellow, but this whole array of different colors. And let's go on to the next slide. Actually, let's go back because I didn't describe something. So let's look at the different colors. And a really interesting thing when leaves change their colors is that yellow and orange and red are really there all the time. We just can't see them. They're hidden underneath the green color, which allows the trees to make food. But when the length of day kind of turns shorter, irregardless, it doesn't matter how hot it is, the trees get the message it's not time to make food. So that whole green color that they need to make food disappears, and the brilliant colors of yellow, orange, red, and sometimes purple. I have a pear tree out front that turns purple in the fall, and those all appear. So it's daylight length as the days get shorter. And then we have another observation coming up, don't we? So again, this allows your kids to really notice things. I observe leaves falling off a tree. My goodness, I wonder, why are all these leaves falling? Are they unhappy? Are they sick? Why do they fall? And actually, there is a website here called Curious Kids, Why Do Leaves Fall Off Trees? But I'm going to tell you real quickly that the reason leaves fall off trees is that they don't need the leaves anymore to make food. When leaves make food, they need water to make food, and then they give off oxygen for us to breathe. But as the days get shorter and there's less water around, their job is done. The food production doesn't go anymore in the leaves. So that water actually moves down to the roots where the tree can store the energy. So short answer, leaves fall off trees because they don't have the water anymore to keep food production going. A
And this,
natural part of life.
yeah, this article was a very good explanation of this at a very simpler level. So, and I'll send this out as one of the resources. But speaking of a leaf falling, here's Leaf and the Fall by Allison Sweet Grant and Adam Grant. So Judy, you want to?
So this is, Rob introduced me to this book. I wasn't familiar with it before, but it talks about a leaf, L-E-I-F, being on a tree and being afraid to fall, just like many of us are afraid to fall. So as we go through the pages, you can see what Leaf says. I don't want to bump my head. I don't want to skin my knee. I don't want to fall. And then his friend Laurel starts to say, let's figure out a way for you to catch yourself, Laurel says. However, with the understanding that all leaves fall. But Leaf comes up with another plan. I love this. This time Leaf and Laurel gather vine or string to secure a leaf to his branch. I wonder if that's going to help. I think no matter how strong the winds blow, you'll be able to hang on now, Laurel says. Whoops, let's turn to another slide and see if Laurel's right. Uh-oh. Leaf accidentally wraps himself up too tight. Help, he cries. I'll get you out, Laurel says, and hurries to help Leaf wriggle free. Leaf tosses the vine to the ground below, but you're wasting your time, the other leaves say. All leaves fall in the fall. But Leaf comes up with yet another plan. This time, Leaf and Laurel build a kite out of bark and moss. My, they're really determined to keep him on that tree. You can soar your way down and land in a nice soft patch of grass, Laurel exclaims. But the tail of the kite gets tangled up in the branches. Poor Leaf ends up going nowhere at all. You're wasting your time, the other leaves say again. All leaves fall in the fall. I wonder if they're right. Let's see. All of a sudden the wind churns, as it is outside my window right now. The branches shake, and with one large cold blast, poor Leaf can hang on no longer, and Leaf falls, oh goodness, upside down. All the ideas that Leaf threw away, the ones he tossed to the ground because he thought they would never work, made a structure tall enough and strong enough to stand on. So like, here's the tangled kite, here are the branches, here's the string. Leaf cannot believe his eyes. He stands up and smiles.
And that's the shortened version, because there were lots of other things he tried. So what I like about it is, he tried all these different ideas, and that's also another good lesson for
he was
kids.
Afraid of falling too, wasn't he?
Yeah, and as luck would have it, all of his attempts helped him in the end.
Right.
So this is another activity that is actually simple in nature. Did you see how I did that? But really, it's well time spent to do a nature walk with kids. Again, to slow them down, to allow them to have time to observe, because they may uncover things, and they can uncover things if we actually don't give them the time and set them up to really observe what's happening. So have kids walk through your neighborhood to discover what nature leaves behind, what nature is helping to start growing for the next season. And also a fun thing to do is take time to break things apart to uncover more. So we have some examples of things you might find in your nature walk, right, Judy?
Right. And a lot of these things are trees or come from trees. So some of them really appeal to kids because they have different textures and different shapes, and they just look weird. Like I'm looking at the honey locust, and you can still see some of the leaf stem attached to the bottom. Honey locust is one of our tallest trees. And oh my goodness, what do you think? A flattened noodle that looks like or something? And those pods have seeds inside of them. So when they turn brown, like the one does on the right, have your kids break them open and find the brown or black seeds. And that's nature, that tree's preparation for growing a new tree. So honey locust pods that maybe look like squiggly snakes and are flattened or flattened noodles. Trees are a great source of stuff, as are our native Colorado blue spruce. The blue spruce, they're actually cones and they're produced inside. They take 2 years to fall to the ground, but you'll very often see them opened, and they're opened because the squirrels have already carried them off and are pulling out the seeds to eat. So that carries the seeds for a new generation, or the birds are doing it. You'll see crows picking them up. And one of my favorite trees that we grow, actually, Rob, I'm going to see if I can, well, let me describe it first. Rob has got a picture of the leaves. They're huge. And those things that look like green beans on the bottom are actually pods, just like we have bean pods. And inside those, as soon as those pods turn brown, they're really long. Those are the seeds. You can actually see on the top right of his picture some of the pods that may be starting to turn brown. This is a tree right now that hasn't started turning yellow or brown leaves. But Rob, would it be interesting? Can I show this leaf on camera? Yeah.
Here are the
If you
pods there.
can.
Yeah, let me clear it, and
All right.
I'll stop sharing here and you
Okay.
can see on the camera.
If you guys can see this, let me hold it up this way. It's really big. You can see it looks like a heart. So that's kind of fun. Can you find the heart tree if you walk through your neighborhood? So tree walks are great because they allow kids to use different directional sense. Instead of being afraid to step on something, they can go ahead and look up. You know, you could also take them on a walk. One thing we didn't show, and dig down in the soil, maybe underneath some plants that are dying down or underneath some straw, and find all the worms that they can find. So lots of critters that you can find underneath or up in the trees.
Yeah, shall we look at some more things that we
Let's
can
look at some
find?
more things. Yeah.
Okay, let me, oh, I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties today. That's not my style. I don't like that, but we'll.
Rob, I've got an idea. While you're having technical difficulties, I've got something else to show on camera.
Okay, very good. Go ahead.
Something that I took out of the garden, and
I got it. Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, is that all right? Okay,
Sure.
we'll just keep going. But thanks for trying to be flexible there, everybody. Okay, what else do we have here? Oh, golden rain tree. I love golden rain tree.
Oh, you know, golden rain tree is a tree that I have in my yard. And I love it because it almost sounds like a musical instrument. My
Mhm.
grandkids, when those pods are green like they are, you can see how much they look like little lanterns, and you can shake them, and it almost makes the sound of a musical instrument in it. So
Like
you can get
rain
these
stick.
weird, these
Yeah.
weird lanterns, and that's what the seeds look like when the pods are dry, and
Mhm.
they grow all over Denver. They
Yeah.
do really well. So golden rain tree. And then we have some other flowers that also grow really well in Denver. Rob's put the name up. Yarrow has all those dried flower heads have got thousands and thousands of seeds. So as soon as they turn brown, you can put your hand underneath it and have your children rub the head and find the tiny little seeds, put them in a dry envelope, and they look just like dust. The second flower is called a coneflower, and you can't really see the pink color, but during the season they attract bees and butterflies. They kind of look like a thistle, just like the blue globe thistle does. And they're a source of food for finches during the summer. So all these flowers that I'm showing you really bring in the bees and butterflies. And then blue globe thistle really feels like it's not real. So this has got kind of spiny heads on it, spiny leaves, and it attracts, with its blue color, really attracts bees. One of my favorites that you might know that Rob is showing you, those are the seeds of the marigold. And you can actually pull, you can see the marigold in flower, and then you can see on the left-hand side as it fades how you can pull the seeds out. So Rob, can you put me on screen and I can show a couple of things?
Yep, I'll do that.
All right. So I'm not sure if this is going to show, but okay, here is the marigold flower. And it had had some water this morning, so you might not be able to see this really well. But here is it when it's, let me see. Yeah. Let me see. What is the best way to do this? Here is it when it's faded. And here I am pulling it apart. And in my hand, which you can't see, everybody see those seeds? Those would just need to be dried a little bit. And while you have me on camera though, I have something that looks like a monster. So not only tree seeds, you can perhaps hear this.
And what is that, Judy? They look like beans, but they look dead.
They do look dead, and that's the reason why you want to kind of observe and wonder what's inside of this. These are bean seeds, very special ones, from a type of bean that you can use for cooking, for chilies and things. I'm going to pull one apart. Here's the pod. It's rattling. I can hear the seeds rattling within. I'm going to break it open. Making noise, bear with me.
Just a little bit higher. There we go, Judy. Yeah, so you've got these beans that have little white
It's
flecks
called
on it.
Jacob's cattle bean. They're absolutely beautiful, and you can use this in making chili, whatever. They're big enough. What I love about working with beans, drying beans, black beans, or pinto beans you grow with the kids, they're big enough that they can actually break the pods open, and it really takes you from planting the seed to using it again in cooking. So dry beans, I observe, I wonder.
Very good.
What else have we
All
got?
right, let's go back to our slides. So yeah, so the marigolds, so basically you, as you can see in this picture, you know, you're taking the underneath this piece normally is green. I mark it with my, this is normally green here. And so if you pull this way, you'll get this, you'll get all the seeds here, which is just really cool.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of marigolds in my garden, and it's just a very satisfying thing actually to uncover those things.
But when you're pulling these out with the kids, you want to make sure that the seeds are nice and black, like you can see on the tips of those seeds. If they're really pale in color, they're probably not ready to take yet. But it's really
Oh, is
fun.
that right? Oh, I didn't know that.
The kids could go and count these and find out, you know, how many plants would it make?
Yeah, yeah. Well, with all these things that you're collecting and looking at, you can actually collect all these dried plants and leaves and turn them into earth art. This is actually, I did this exercise with a bunch of teachers in a teacher workshop, and I just had a bunch of materials. I laid them out. They were allowed to take, I gave them like, you can get up to 15 pieces, and you can put them in any kind of way, any kind of design, and make your own piece of art. And then we had a gallery walk where people walked around and saw what they did. For younger kids, you may not have as many, or you may prescribe, the materials a little bit more. I will put like some string, and that actually helps them to create a space. So I'll make a circle with the string and say, this is your space, and you get to build anything you want. You get to make anything you want with it and create some art with all these things from nature. And then with the teachers, we did this thing where without talking, they dismantled all their art pieces and they created one big piece of art. And so on this side over here, they did it on the ground. Judy and I did another workshop at the Doug office, and they found this beam, this old wooden beam that was actually part of our building. Used to be the horse barn of Denver, and this beam is part of just in the back of the building. And they put all their pieces onto this, which I thought was a very clever idea. And again, this is without talking to each other. So for older students, you may want to do something like that. But this is a fun activity in terms of just, like making your observations and then actually, creating something with this afterwards.
And it also, gives the feeling that things don't need to stay the same. You can rearrange
No.
them to make all kinds of different things.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be permanent either. It's like this is a temporal thing, just like autumn is. It comes and goes.
One of the best things is you don't have to spend any money in buying supplies.
No, the materials are all, although I did buy a few little things to make it interesting, and I brought my rocks from home.
Okay.
But I made sure I got all my rocks back because I love all my rocks. But people really like the rocks too. Leaf confetti, I actually got this from a wedding site because, it's an ecologically, nicer, more sound way to get confetti instead of plastic. And so all you need is a scissor and a puncher, and you punch away. And you can use, here they use green leaves, but because it's autumn, you actually get more interesting colors of leaves, so you could do it that way. So so there you go. And let's see what's next. Oh, the garden in autumn. All right, Judy, go ahead.
So the garden in autumn is a time of slowing down. And it's a time, depending upon when you decide autumn is going to start for you, that you can plant almost some of the same crops that you see in springtime. So although it may not be a season of tomatoes and peppers, there are many, many different things that you can plant that do well. If you started your autumn garden by the end of July, you could plant peas and carrots and a little bit later on, the same leafy greens that you would. So the carrots and radishes and lettuce and spinach and beets. And even if you had some transplants of broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower. So let's go on and see what our next slide says.
So as the amount of sunlight decreases, we look to other crops to grow in the early fall season. So Judy mentioned a few of them, but can you think we're going to test your garden knowledge? And don't worry if you're right or wrong, just type in the chat, what crops might we grow for the cooler season when it's cooler? Type in the chat what you think. And the thing is, we're at least in Denver, the season is shortening. It definitely is shortening. We can only have so much time in growing things, but you still could. So beets, Kiana says, yes.
Oh.
What else? Although it's getting even shorter for beets too. But yeah. What else? And I'll give you a hint. If you think in terms of greens that will grow quickly, even with decreased sunlight, you're in a good zone. So what leafy greens? There you go. What leafy greens would you grow?
Think salads.
Think salads. Yeah, think salads. See if you can type in the chat there. What do you think? I know this is a quiet audience, so maybe you can say it to yourself. Laura says kale and lettuce.
Kale and lettuce, yeah.
Ajo.
We'll talk.
Laura is our
We'll talk
ajo
about
fan.
that.
Our garlic fan, yes. Well, here's some of the
Oh,
things.
spinach. Okay.
Yeah.
Spinach is
So
good.
go ahead, Judy.
So at this time, since we're doing the webinar at this time, it's too late to put out broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower. However, all these crops that are listed, bok choy, if you're not familiar with it, is a member of the broccoli family. You see it a lot in Asian cooking. You can eat the stalks and the leaves, and it tastes a lot like broccoli. It cooks really quickly, and it'll grow within from 30 days. The next one is Swiss chard that you see. That's a member of the broccoli family. You eat the leaves and the stems. Of course, lettuce. Radish will mature in 30 days. How about a plug for cilantro, folks? That we have such trouble growing in the springtime because our springs get too hot and the days are too long. But cilantro planted right now, you can even put a blanket of leaves over it in the late fall and it will come back in the spring. I always do cilantro in the spring. And that last picture is spinach. You can actually do 2 plantings of spinach. If you put about 10 or 12 seeds out right now, and then in another week, another 10 or 12 seeds, it should do just fine covered with leaves. So you can recreate salad gardens straight right now at this time of the year.
That's cool. Yeah, and because I think that, a lot of people just think, well, season's over, but not really.
But it's not.
No. And Julie points out, she mentioned spinach. Lila wants to go back to the colors of the leaves and wanted to point out that the leaves are turning red, orange, and yellow and brown because also the waste material that is inside the leaves also contributes to that. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Good
So
for-
Laura's asking, can you plant this from seed or better seedlings? Are you talking in terms of the spinach, Laura, or what are you talking about?
Yes, I was wondering if the kids can plant this from seeds right now.
So I think that spinach has a large enough seed that you can plant right the seed directly in the ground. What I would do with spinach, and it's so nutritious, would be because it has a hard seed coat on it, right? That's the coat that it has on it. It is hard. I would soak the seeds in water for a few hours until they turn a little softer and then go ahead and plant it directly from seed.
Wow, that's a good tip. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, now we have a poll question. I'm going to start this poll and you'll be able to answer. Here's the question. Remember to plant your seeds deeper in the ground in the fall than in the spring in order to, and here are your options, and I will set up the poll. So it's to prevent the seeds from higher exposure to the sun, allow the seeds to grow in cooler soil, or to allow roots to grow deeper in the soil, or all of the above. So I'm going to push a poll out there. I'm going to launch a poll. And if you want to play, the poll is out there now, and you just click on the answer you think is correct. And we'll give you just a little bit of time to do that. So this is thinking about, when you're planting, there's some method to the madness here, and it has to do with the different season that things are being planted. So
3 of 12 voted, 4 of 12.
yeah. I'll give you 10 more seconds to answer. Okay. And I wanted to, somebody's in the chat there. Okay. All right. And I'm going to end the poll, and everybody that participated got it right. The answer is all of the above. Judy, you want to comment at all?
Let me, can you take the poll off just for a
Yeah,
moment?
sure.
Okay, so when we're, maybe we close the poll.
You have to
Oh,
close it
sorry.
on your, yeah, you have to close it on your computer. Yeah.
Okay, the reason for, remember that we're still, although these seeds love cool growing conditions and we are getting it cooler in the morning, our soils are still warm. So we don't want that hot sunlight beating down on the soil, making the soil temperatures even higher. So when we mention plant them a little bit deeper, it doesn't mean that you bury them a foot in the ground. Normally when we plant seeds, we plant them 2 times deeper than their diameter. So let me break that down in simple terms. If a seed is really, really tiny, we might plant it just directly below the surface. Something like spinach that in springtime we might plant a quarter of an inch below the surface, you might plant a third of an inch below the surface. So a little bit, so this, it's getting cooler soil. The sun isn't beating down. And then the deeper soil retains moisture, and it allows those roots then to grow a little bit deeper in the soil. So always when you're planting your seeds, one last thing, make sure that that soil has been moistened before you plant the seeds.
Yeah. And we couldn't stump this group. They knew.
Oh, they got
they knew something was up. When you always throw all of the above, you always have to consider.
Oh my goodness.
We're going to go a little bit faster with this and give you some ideas in terms of recipes. Kale chips is a great, easy one. All you have to do is, I just did this the other day. You just dry some kale. Make sure it's dry because it makes it crunchier. And you can see our favorite model, Dia, is cutting the leaves from the stem, and you put that on a baking sheet. You drizzle oil over the kale. You can do it in a bowl and then spread it on the sheet. Bake it at 300 for about 20 to 30 minutes, or use an air fryer, and you season with salt, and it's ready to go. And it's very, very good. I can eat a whole bowl, a whole bunch of kale in one sitting. I bet some of you out there can too. Dill pickles.
Dill pickles are wonderful, and I love this recipe for dill pickles because it allows us to use cucumbers from the garden that so many people love. You could also do this with zucchini, by the way, with small zucchini. And you do not need to use a pressure canner or a water bath. Rob's put in the instructions, and you can see what you do. You just stir the water, vinegar, sugar, and salt together and water, and bring it to a boil. Remove that solution, that pickling solution, from the stove, let it cool, and then you have cucumbers or zucchini spears that you have cut up, and garlic cloves. Actually, when I've done this, I've done as many as 4 garlic cloves. Leave the cloves whole. And this allows you to use dill that still may be in the garden. One other addition that I've done for people who like things a little bit spicier, per quart jar of pickles, you can put in about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of hot pepper. I love that. Or some dry hot chili pepper pods. Really well. You just, cool your solution, your vinegar solution, pour it over your cucumbers, garlic, dill, hot pepper if you're using, seal the container with a lid, put it in the fridge, restrain yourself from eating them for 3 days. I've tried that first, they're edible, but after 3 days, they never last a week in my refrigerator. It's a great way of getting kids to actually eat veggies and not all that much salt in it for the amount of stuff that you
really, and compared to commercial.
Right, and only a tablespoon of sugar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think the hardest part of that recipe is waiting the 3 days.
If this were pressure canned, I would wait a little bit more. But knowing that I need to unscrew the lid, how easy it is. Isn't it ready yet? Can I try it? Maybe not quite yet.
Tam is asking where we can get all these delicious looking recipes. I'll make the slides available to you, and also the links that we use. So you can have the links where the recipes are. So yeah, rest assured, we're going to give these to you. So if we go through these fast, don't worry, we're going to give them to you.
Absolutely.
And Laura's talking about the kale air fryer in 8 minutes. Kids love them. Yay is right. Yeah, we didn't want to deny you the recipes. So yeah, here's if we shift gears a little bit, here's a math activity. I was actually proposing this for an activity that we were doing for a garden, and Laura reminded me this was a new garden. So, there's not much out there. So this wouldn't work as well. But if you have an active garden, how about a scavenger hunt where you have different shapes, circles, squares, triangles, maybe different colors, and you give one or a bunch to kids and say, okay, find a yellow triangle, find something that's either a triangle shape or find something that's yellow, and have that as part of your lesson for learning different shapes. So that's one from Kids Gardening and Planet. And there's a list on that link. There's a list of a lot of different activities there. Autumn is also a time for gathering. I mean, Thanksgiving is coming up along the way. It's getting cooler. And certainly that lends itself for people to gather at the dinner table. So I will pass this over to Judy.
So, when we think about gathering together, it's obviously we're bringing together cultural traditions. We're also bringing together the stories of how things have been for us in the last days, and we're allowing time to listen carefully for those voices that sometimes we don't hear, for the wisdom that's passed down from generations, what our kids have learned from the garden or from their teaching. So I think it's really important when we gather to not come with a preconceived agenda, to just sit down, put our phones down, not be texting, and actively listen for that next gem of wisdom, and to celebrate all the hard work that went into growing, but most of all to celebrate that we have people together that love us, whom we love.
There's nothing like having a gathering of people and when you've harvested, there's just something really, even if it's just like you just harvested one tomato and it was part of your salad or something like that. There's just something really nice to be able to share that with people.
It doesn't matter how much the yield of my garden it is.
Exactly.
It is, so I'm not looking at the end product. I'm just looking at how much I learned. And I think what I try and do each year is to make a different mistake each year. If I do that, I feel like I've done it well.
Well, then you've made a lot of mistakes, Ms. Elliott, because you've got a long time.
I'm celebrating them.
I'm making a lot of mistakes. I'm doing it all at once. So I'm, so not just one, but many. In terms of gathering, I think it's also a time of to gather with a sense of purpose, with a sense of ritual. I saw this site that was really interesting. It was talking about how corn is a sacred symbol and plant for the Dene, the Navajo, and corn is native to North America. There are plants that we grow and vegetables that we eat that are from other countries that we just have. We have plentiful at the grocery store. But corn is a native one that was originally here in North America. And as many of you might know, for the Dene, it's a staple of their diet and is also used in ceremonies. And one of the ceremonies I read about was that when girls come of age, families roast a corn cake as part of their celebration. I was just checking the chat over here. So here we go. And so I went on the hunt for a corn cake recipe, and this one looks so good. So I haven't tried it yet because I've been so busy, but I am going to. So it's sort of like you make sort of a pancake sort of battery sort of thing with cornmeal, flour, baking powder, baking soda, some seasoning with salt and cracked pepper. Here's where it gets interesting. Scallions, sun-dried cranberries, and a cup of corn. You mix all that up. You combine all the ingredients except for the water and mix it well. You add a little bit of water at a time so it makes it like a thick, hot cereal. You ladle it onto a hot griddle that has sunflower oil, and then you cook the cakes until they're golden brown on both sides. They look so, you can see this picture. It's just like, oh my gosh, I got to have some of these. So maybe, I don't know what what the tradition is. I'd have to read or talk to people more about, what is the actual corn cake that they would use for ceremonies for girls. But here's one that, here's just a recipe that I thought was really good. From the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. They're in Massachusetts. So I got it straight from.
One of the things that is pretty interesting is a lot of the indigenous grown varieties of corn are not necessarily the sweet corn that we would grow, but are corn that were used a lot more for grinding, for making cornmeal, for making corn cakes, and also used as an addition for animal feed. So a lot of the varieties are quite short. But they're absolutely wonderful. And the kernels are ground very much in traditional culture, the same way they would be on a mano and metate, just a flat stone. Pretty interesting.
That's cool. That's lovely. When I was on the lookout, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but I found, and again, I'll provide these links for you. The recipes, Native American recipes, and there's some really good ones. Some pancakes, blueberry blue cornmeal pancakes chili, and then this fruit berry dish. Looked really good. We may revisit this for another webinar here. And then finally, we have, I'm going to put myself on there so you can see me a little bit more. So this is a corn husk doll. This is a traditional way to make it. I found this on a museum website. There's a native person explaining how to make these, and also the story of the corn husk doll. But for starters, this is what the materials that you need: a pair of scissors, some yarn to tie, a styrofoam ball, about 1 inch for the head, and then obviously a bunch of corn husks. And you soak the corn husks in a bowl of water so you can manipulate them. And we're not going to show you the instructions on how to do it, but I do have a question for you based that I learned from watching the video. So you watch the video, and then she tells you the story of the tradition of making them and why in the Cherokee tradition, they leave something out in the corn husk doll. So here's our poll question here. Our next poll question is on corn husk dolls. Based on Cherokee tradition, what is left out of making a corn husk doll? The arms, the legs, or the face? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, this is interesting. I got answers of all three answers. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds. We're running short on time, so I won't let us. We've got 7 minutes, so let's end the poll. And some of you said the arms, some of you said the legs, and a couple of you said the face. Well, the answer to this is in the story itself. So it's basically what happens is the creator created the corn husk doll, and she was very beautiful. And she went, and her job was to take care of the children. And so the creator said, this is why I created you and everything. She's saying, okay, got it. She decides that as she's walking over, one morning, she's walking over to the children, she sees this pond, and she sees how beautiful she is. She goes, oh my gosh, I'm so beautiful. And she forgets to take care of the kids. Well, this happens a number of times where the creator's like, I thought you were supposed to take care of the kids. He's like, I'm sorry, I've been looking at my face. I'm so beautiful. Well, guess what happens? He warns her and says, you can't do this anymore. And she continues to do it. So in order to keep her from being distracted, he removes her face. So in the tradition of Cherokee, in the Cherokee tradition, you do not put the face on a corn husk doll. You can see them with them, but in the traditional sense, you don't put them in there. And I thought that was a fun story.
And you can see if you go back just a moment, right?
Yeah, sure.
I know that we're running short. You can see how this is connected to another use of corn husks, of course, which would be making tamales. Okay?
Ah, yes.
So I
Yes.
absolutely love that in our cultures, we have the full use of so many ingredients. If you noticed in some of the recipes that Rob shared, it called for dried berries, things that we, whether it's cranberries or I've dried strawberries from my garden. Every part of the plant is used, which I love. So much knowledge in Indigenous heritage.
That's right.
And
Okay, Judy.
finally, autumn to me is a time of giving. The excess crops, sometimes I don't celebrate it. All the apples from my trees, the squirrels come and they take one bite and throw it down and carry off the next. But nature is abundant, whether it is the extra nuts from my oak trees for the squirrels, whether it's the spiders at the end of the season, carrying off a lot of the pest insects in their net. You see this at the end of season, not during the season. Whether it's the robins picking off those choke cherries from the branches, nature provides. We just need to be there and nurture. And autumn, as you saw from the book, from Leaf Who is Afraid to Fall, it really is okay to let go of things when they grow above ground and learn the wisdom that happens below. So we can learn from jumping in leaf piles with our kids, how beautiful that is to save the leaves, to enrich the soil, to make it all be part of a cycle of growth and health. And finally, we have a book that we're going to need to we may not have time to go through this, but this really talks about cycles. It talks about a baby bird from the time he was born to starting growing up. And I think it's important. The most important part of this book for me is that a garden doesn't begin in spring and end in autumn. So it's not a planting, a grow, and dying. But we nurture every part of that cycle of planting, caring for the soil, caring for the plant. And then when the active phase of the plant is finished, gathering its seeds and giving back more than we take by enriching the soil, the growing area for the next year. So let's see real quickly if we can look at just a few slides before we need to go.
Yeah, maybe just a couple there, Judy,
Maybe
because
just
yeah.
So you can see this is the beginning of the cycle when the helpless baby birds can't do anything and they're completely dependent upon mom and dad, who go out probably every 5 minutes to find those little insects to feed. And then as the season progresses, you can see the sunlight is changing, the weather is turning, they've learned how to fly. They learned from mom and dad it's time to go south. And you can see this in the butterflies and everything else. And then it's starting to get warm again, so it's getting to be spring. So they're flying up from their winter places where they're nesting and repeating the cycle again. They get to make chicks now. So I'd like you to look at kind of the season, the gardening season, the season of harvest, as a time of quiet, a time of reflection, but a time of a continuing cycle.
That's a nice way to end the webinar, Judy. Continuing cycle. We have one more poll, and I'm going to put this up. Which activities are you most interested? We're curious about, which ones you like the most. And we had so many that it's actually 2 questions. So I'm going to launch the poll. Click on the ones you think are the most interesting, or that, oh, I'd like to have that or try that. So I'll give you just a little bit of time to select. It's a quiet audience, so maybe we won't spend too much time on this one. Which one do you like, Judy? What's your favorite one that you want to try?
I have to tell you that I love Nature Walk and Leaf and Fall. And I'm just an avid cook, so I can't pick one recipe. I've done Earth Art so many times with you. That's a favorite.
Yeah, that's fun.
It just uses what you have around you,
right,
and kind of brings out creativity.
Yeah. Well, here are some of the favorites that people have chosen. They like the books. The Nature Walk is popular. Well, let me share the results. Nature Walk is popular. Leaf Confetti, the recipes, and the corn husk doll. Yeah, check out the video on the corn husk doll. It's very simple, but it would take up time for us to show you how to do it. But they give you a great idea of how to do it, even without giving you details, because they're mostly telling the story itself. All right, so let's see. Oh, okay, Kiana, it wouldn't let you submit, but the Nature Walk is a great idea. Great, okay. So we have our books here. I am gonna do this by I'm thinking of a month. No, I'm thinking of a number, and from 1 to 20. And if you get near my number, you will get, if you hold a seed. So type in the chat, which, okay, Candace says 13. Anybody else? 15, Karina. Julie says 3. Nune says 7. 18, we got a 7. Okay, so I thought number 5, and that's tricky because Julie and Nune were set. So, but I actually had in mind, I meant to say, under. So let's just give this to, I tell you what, we'll give Julie, actually I'll give you a choice. All 3 of you, Julie, Nune, and Jocelyn, let's do it that way. So Julie, you were the lowest number. Which book would you like to have? Hold a Seed, Leaf, or the bird one? Type in the chat there or get on the mic. Leaf. Okay, Julie wants Leaf. Nune, you were next. Which one would you like? Yes, yeah, congrats. Thank you, Tim. Nune, which one would you like? Type in the chat or get on the mic there. You've got your choice of Actually, you could choose any of them. I'll just get duplicates. It's fine. Hold a seed. Okay. And then Jocelyn, what would you like? You're welcome. If you have a seed. Okay, great. I've got them all. Let me just I'm going to make a screenshot of this so that I can remember, because my memory is so feeble. All right. I'm going to send you out a survey. Don't forget to sign up for a newsletter. If you haven't already, I'll give you this information later on. And on behalf of Judy and I, thank you so much.
Thank you all. We loved being with you.
Yes, yes, yes. It's been wonderful. And I'll send out the recording and the resources as soon as I can. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Andrew, for interpreting. Bye, everyone.
Bye.